Hey y'all, this is a video about my top 5 tarot decks of 2020. I've been seeing a lot of people doing these and it's really inspired me to do my own. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do my top 5 decks, period, whether they were tarot or oracle. Some of them are tarot and some of them are oracle. And before I get started, I just wanted to say this is my fabulous bisexual sweater. Stand up so I can show you a little bit more of it. Is the most bi sweater ever. My folks got it for me. I don't think they did that on purpose. I think they just liked the colors. But to me, I mean, obviously they're the colors of the bisexual flag, so I'm really excited about it. But yeah, one of my favorite Christmas gifts. I've just been kind of living in it. So I'm gonna live in it to do this video. So yeah, so a couple decks that I've been working with. This one is my classic deck. This is the deck I've been working with almost since the beginning. I mentioned this on my video about how I got into tarot, because the book, How to Deal Tarot for Everyday Life, the book uses a lot of these same images, and this is a later edition. So some of the images are a little different. That's the front of the box. It comes in this little bag in the box. And you, as far as I know, you can't get the Circo anymore because it's out of print. And so yeah, but she did make, let's see, she did make at least five editions of it. So, there's probably some out there, but yeah, so this is the front. You can see the back, you can see the backs. I love the backs with the eyes. I'm just going to show you a little bit about it and talk about like how I've been using it. So I think this deck is a little bit dark. It's funny because it's got such vibrant colors, which I love. That's one of the things I love about it. But some of the imagery is, some of the imagery is really fun, and some of it is just a little bit on the darker side. For instance, this is the Nine of Knives, and the swords are knives in this. And this is the Ten of Knives, which is kind of graphic. So those are some examples of some of the graphic ones. So I don't read for it. If somebody's feeling like very vulnerable or like sensitive, I won't use that one to read for them. And I don't use that one for myself, or I read for my husband a lot. We read for each other, and because we have like a tarot relationship, basically. A lot of our relationship is tarot. What was I gonna say? Yeah, like we won't use that deck for each other if we're feeling like kind of sensitive. But I use this deck for myself a lot because I feel like I need this kind of like straight talk, more than I need, to be kind of dealt with sensitively a lot of the time, or at least this year I've felt like I needed that. And maybe that's speaking to this year and how just kind of brutal this year has been in general. That I wouldn't need to be kind of talked down to by a deck, essentially. So this deck definitely won't pull any punches, but it also has some really great imagery. You can see that the colors are really, really vibrant. Really love the green background. And I love that this deck has some occult imagery. You can see the infinity symbol there. The High Priestess is one of my favorite High Priestesses of any deck. I love the pomegranates behind her, and the fact that her arms are the pillars. It just, to me, it speaks of like the intense power that she has. I also love that she's sort of veiled in her dress. So like it seems to suggest to me that like she is the mystery. She embodies the mystery. I love the Empress in this deck. I love how she looks very strong, and she doesn't look like some sort of stereotypical mother figure. So I think I don't react to her in the way I sometimes react to the Empress, which is just to be like, too much. And I think that sort of speaks to my issues probably. But yeah, this Empress feels like a powerful, strong, but not kind of bearing or anything, or kind of stereotypical looking mother figure. And I'm not going to go through all the deck. I just wanted to show a couple things about it. Like there's these animal-human hybrids, which I really like. Again, there's the Ankh there, so it's like some occult symbolism. I love the lovers. There's a couple times when she depicts like people like really realistically, and I like that. I like that it's not like a very stylized depiction of the human form. I like that she gives a mix of kind of abstract imagery and very realistic imagery, like every day. And you can see, like, you know, she's just driving in her car. But this is one of my favorite chariots of any deck that I've ever had, because it's just so suggestive of the kind of power of the chariot, of being able to take yourself where you need to go. Strength. The Hermit. Again, I love how every day this image is. She's just got a flashlight standing in the dark. Yeah, so I think that's about it. I also wanted to say that I think the deck is a nice mix of intensity and playfulness and just vibrancy. It brings up a variety of emotions, and I think that has made it good for me for a lot of different types of readings, more serious ones and maybe perhaps a little bit more playful readings as well. And I also wanted to say that I love everything this creator does, Marisa de la Peña. To my knowledge, she doesn't do tarot decks anymore. But I've always wanted to get her Persephone deck, so that would be like probably in my top 5 if it were here. Because I've always thought it was really beautiful, but it ran out before I was able to buy it. So too bad there. But yeah, if I could find more of her work, I would probably in tarot, I would probably buy it. So a little bit more about the Ostara. So this, I told you about this one in my other video. I'm just going to show the box because I didn't get to show the box at that time. I'm not going to talk about this one very much because I talked about it a lot in the other video, but I mostly just want to say that I think I'm just going to show a couple more cards from it. It's the 5 of Pentacles, the 4 of bunnies, 4 of wands, High Priestess, 2 of Pentacles, and the Knight of Wands. Yeah, I basically just wanted to say that this year I've found this deck like a little bit more playful than I would like. I know you can kind of see that a lot of the depending on which creator you're looking at, it can be a little bit, sorry, I'm having trouble figuring out where to position these cards, guys. I'm kind of new at showing cards. But yeah, you can see that it's a bit playful. It doesn't always, I think, lend itself that well to serious readings. Or I think maybe if you're a more sensitive person, it does. But I have used it a lot for readings for my I guess it's my business. I'm trying to get a tarot business off the ground. And I haven't read for anyone actually for money yet. I've never, no one has ever bought a reading from me. But I have done a lot of practice readings, and I found that this deck works perfectly well for relationship questions, job questions, serious stuff. But also I personally just don't use it a lot for myself. Maybe it's because I find it too playful. I think it works well for other people. It helps me not to sort of be too harsh. But I think for myself, I want a little bit more, just a little bit more rigor or something that I want sometimes. Okay, and I know this is a strange choice, but the Rider-Waite Smith would be one of my top 5, and that's because I've never gotten into it before. And you can see I have this back with the like stars on it, and if these are pretty beat up cards, and they're not my deck, they're my husband's, because he was the first of the two of us to buy. Actually, his Rider-Waite Smith deck is the only one that we have still, just because I've never bought one. I've never taken the money to do that and done that particular thing with my money. I usually buy another tarot deck, like a more new one that I want if I'm going to buy one. But anyway, this year I was wanting to study tarot more in depth, and so I bought or I didn't buy, but I began using my husband's Rider-Waite Smith deck. And I found the images. I was very surprised about how excited I was by the images. I wasn't prepared to actually like it. I always kind of thought like this is kind of basic or something. But then when I really started getting into it, I loved it. I love the font that things are written in. I love the fact that this was made in the late 19th and early 20th century, which is the period that I study as an academic. And I've actually studied in an academic sense. I've studied a writer who was probably involved with the Golden Dawn, E. Nesbit, with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And I know a lot of 19th century writers were, so I like that connection. I like that, that I know writers who have been involved with similar kind of occult stuff to the people who originally made this deck. Yeah, and I wasn't prepared for how much I would enjoy it. Also, I just love the colors. I love the way this particular version of the deck renders the colors. There's a real brightness to how they have come off. Like, I think the Three of Cups really shows that well. The bright red and the bright yellow and the blue of the sky comes off really strong in this deck. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has that experience of coming late to the Rider-Waite Smith and actually finding that you really love it. So my last two decks are going to be Oracle decks, and I have the Literary Witches Oracle. This one I really love. So you can see the backs there. The hand choosing a card. I really love the backs. They're kind of big cards, which is a bit difficult, but I'm fine with it. So they have the witches and the witches' materials. So each person that they have here is a witch, and so this is one of the witches' materials. So the witches themselves are either self-proclaimed or self-named witches, or they self-identified witches, or they're sort of witchy writers that the authors have decided to call witches, which I think is interesting because that allows them to give more of a sort of cross section of time, because if you're allowing only writers who really have called themselves witches, that would be a very modern set of people. And most of these witches are women. That's worth saying too. This is Zora Neale Hurston. You can see there's a bottle. It looks like maybe a bottle of ink spilled. And then there's a skull. There's a lot of symbols that keep coming up in this deck that feel like they have some sort of like occult or like mystical power, like the spilled bottle or a spilled cup keeps coming up over and over. The skull keeps coming up over and over, and these are also part of the witch's materials. So I think they've really created, see here's the skull, they've really created a system that is very self-contained. It has a lot of references, and it continues to reference itself throughout. So it's a very internally coherent system. But that also means it doesn't really refer to a lot outside of itself, or not to say that it doesn't refer to things outside of itself, but that it doesn't refer to like occult symbolism that I know well from tarot decks. And these might be symbols that have wider resonance, just wider cultural resonance, like certainly a skull, certainly an apple. Oops. An apple keeps recurring. There's a symbol of an egg that keeps recurring, and there's always something different coming out of it. It's like here is like sort of green goo, and in some cards it's like blood. So I think sometimes it might just be that I don't know the symbolism that they're drawing on. sometimes it might be that the symbolism is just a little bit more general. There's the spilled bottle again there. Like they might be drawing on symbols that are more general and that we all have associations with, but that are not specific occult symbols in specific systems of occult knowledge. Oh, I want to say about the Shirley Jackson, there's another spilled cup there. Elixir. Okay, so you basically get the idea. It's the witches and their materials. And I have found this one a little difficult to use in readings of the kind I usually do, like a sort of 3-card daily reading for myself. I would find this a little hard to use for that, but I think it could be really useful to use for like a bigger question. And it could be really interesting for me to use for my writing. And so like I was saying, even though I've just started to study this deck, that's kind of how I envision using it in the future, is using it to think more about my writing. And I think also it could be really good for like spiritual or occult or like very personal development type questions. Because again, the symbolism is like so interesting and abstract, but also just so rich. Like the cards make up this environment that you can sort of dissect and look at each symbol and think about what it means. I think it would be best for like really deep questions. And finally, the Supra Oracle. So this is another one that I'm just starting to work with, even though it's been in my house for a while. It's actually my husband's deck. Again, we buy each other tarot decks and oracle decks a lot. It's very common. And then it's kind of anybody's guess, like who will be the one who uses the deck more. It doesn't really matter if it was bought for a specific one of us. The other one will kind of, adopt it as theirs. And yeah, so this is one that I sort of developed really strong feelings for after I started working with it. And I really like the backs. You can see they're kind of like this kind of sort of moon surface, like surface of the moon looking kind of thing. They're very, very smooth. You can see kind of how smooth they are here in the way that they shuffle. And I'm not very good at shuffling in the way that a lot of people do, where they kind of switch the card. Like, I'm not sure what you call that. Maybe riffle shuffling. But I'm more a shuffler, like a sort of, I guess, traditional shuffler. I tend to shuffle like this. I tend to shuffle like that more often. But however you shuffle them, I feel like these cards feel very nice. At any rate, so I like that about them. I like the look of them. And as I've started working with them, I bought the guidebook, which is this. And I found it very hard to work with before I had the guidebook. After I bought my husband the deck for a holiday, I forget which holiday, I also bought him the guidebook for the next holiday, because I was like, this is actually a lot harder to work with without the guidebook than I would have thought. And again, so I've just recently started studying this. But so there are different aspects. There's the materia prima, which is kind of like ether, air. It's all the elements basically plus ether. And I think the idea is that those are supposed to be sort of the primary materials of life. And then there's, let's see, what are the other categories? There's the hidden path. And there's the secret, and there's sacred geometry. And I honestly don't understand the difference between the hidden path and the secret that much. Both the hidden path and the secret all draw really heavily on Jungian psychology and also medieval Gnosticism. So they're bringing in these two systems. And anybody who's done a lot with Jungian psychology will recognize some of these terms, like the unconscious, synchronicity, ego, the psyche, things like that. Animus, anima. And then when you go into the secret, those things were all in the hidden path. And then when you go into the secret, there are things like thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition, which again you probably recognize because those are things from the Myers-Briggs personality test, and they're concepts that came from Jungian psychology. But there's also things that feel like they could fit just as well. I would have understood the division if the only thing that was in The Secret was like these sort of capacities, thinking, feeling, those things. But it's not divided like that. It's divided like a lot of terms that sound very a lot of terms sound like they could be in either category. And even the hidden path and the secret, to me, those two things sound very similar. But the idea that I get from the hidden path is that the idea is that you're on a path to self integration into individuation. I definitely get that, and I think that's a really cool idea. And I guess I just don't get so much the category of the secret. That seems a bit more. And again, maybe it's just because I haven't done as much study in Jungian psychology. So if anybody thinks they understand that better, or if you have a lot of experience working with the Supra Oracle, or really any experience, hearing someone talk about that could be cool. And then the last category is sacred geometry. I think that's a really interesting one because it's got all the different. It's got. I'll show you. So here's an example. It's just like. You see the polygon here. There's another one of the sacred geometry ones. I really love on these cards how the hand just comes out of nowhere. It feels so classic and just appropriate, and it is something that makes it relatable for me to tarot. I think that sort of mystical hand coming out of nowhere, synchronicities in your life coming out of nowhere kind of quality is something I really get from this deck. Just the mystery of life, and I think this deck really has helped me. I'll just show a few cards to sort of connect with that mystery. And again, I think, this is magic, sorry. Again, I think this would be a really good deck for, like the Literary Witch Oracle, it would be a really, really good deck for occult work, for specific occult or self-development questions. I think it would be really good for anybody who's a writer or a creator to use this deck, because it really heavily thinks about this image of plugging something out of nowhere is just so evocative to anybody who creates. I think, and to me, a lot of the cards have creative potential and creativity as their base sort of thing that they're communicating. So potential, mysticism, and they also think a lot, I think, about the dynamic between rest and creativity. So there's a lot of cards that are stillness. There's one called Nothing, which is just a box. It has nothing in it. I love that. Here's some more of the sacred geometry ones. I also love how many different types of things are on these cards. They have the ones that are just purely, again, these are just purely the polygons. They don't have any even writing on them. I like that they have that. Here's the Nothing. I also like that they have ones that are, that have images and words and that are much more evocative. And I like that there are words on them. That really helps me have something to hang on to, because even if you have the book with all the descriptions in it, their descriptions are very, very abstract. And so the word on the card helps you often even more than that description does. So yeah, I'm learning how to use that one. I would say that's my 5th deck of the year. And that's pretty much all I have to say about my 2020 top 5. And I hope I'll have some great decks to talk about in 2021. It's been a pleasure to be creating content that you guys are watching. It's been one of the great things about 2020, and I really hope you stick around for more content. Okay, bye.